Welcome back. Now we have some more assets in our project. We have this XBot skeletal mesh. And along with XBot, we downloaded some animations from Mixamo, such as this attack animation and this standing idle animation. And there's a reason that we had to download the Mixamo skeletal mesh because it's the Mixamo skeleton that these animations use. Here in the animation editor, in the asset details, we see skeleton. And notice it's grayed out. We can't just click and change this to echo skeleton. It doesn't work that way, and that's because animations are specific to the skeletons that use them. And if we click the skeleton tree, we'll see that here's the skeleton's bone hierarchy. And if we go into our echo skeletal mesh and clear the search bar, we'll see that the skeleton hierarchy is quite different. We have all these extra bones. The scarf itself has its own bones. And even aside from those extra bones, the regular bones on the character are all named differently. So for this reason, we have to go through extra steps to get a Mixamo skeleton, like the ones we downloaded, working on our Echo skeletal mesh. Now in Unreal Engine, to get an animation for one skeleton working on a different skeleton, we perform an action known as retargeting. And to retarget an animation from one skeleton to another, in Unreal Engine 5, we have to use an asset called an IK rig. An IK rig can be created for a skeletal mesh, and we can take chains of bones and map them over to an IK rig for another skeletal mesh. We're going to make an IK rig in this lecture. So we'll go back into our Mixamo folder and into XBot. And we have our XBot skeletal mesh here. And in this folder, I'm going to make a new folder and call this rigs. And here in rigs, we're going to make an IK rig for the XBot skeletal mesh. To do that, we right-click, go to Animation, and select IK rig. An IK rig requires us to pick a skeletal mesh. We're going to choose SKM XBot, and we'll call this IK_XBot. And if we double-click this, we now see the IK rig editor. And in the hierarchy panel to the left, we can see all the bones in the skeleton. Now notice we have a couple things here. We see retarget root, and this is going to be the root bone for our skeleton. Now for the Mixamo skeleton, that's going to be the hips bone, which is this bone all the way at the top of the hierarchy. And if we click on it, we'll see the bone as well as other bones that are attached to it. We have two bones going to the legs and one bone going up to the spine, all attached to the hips bone. This is going to be our retarget root. Essentially, the retarget root is going to be the frame of reference for all the other bones in our IK rig. So we can right-click on the hips and select Set Retarget Root. Now, we do have this Add New Chain option. And by chain, this means a chain of bones. Each part of the body is made up of a chain of bones, and if we can create a new chain specifying which bones belong to the chain, then once we create an IK rig for Echo, we can select the corresponding bones for Echo and make a chain for those, and that's how we can map from one skeleton to another and get that animation data over to Echo. So our job here is to create chains and select which bones should go in each chain. Now each of our IK rigs is going to need a root chain. Our root chain for the Mixamo skeleton is going to consist of a single bone, our hips bone. So we can right-click on the hips and select New Retarget Chain from Selected Bones. And we're presented with this menu that asks us to name the chain and provide a start bone and an end bone. Both of these will be hips in this case, and this chain name will be root. So our IK rig needs a root. We're going to call it root and click OK. And now in our IK retargeting tab, just under the details panel, we have a new chain called root, starting at the hips and ending at the hips. Now there's an optional IK goal, and these are additional features we can add to IK rigs, but we're not going to mess with those for this. All we need are chains. Now our next chain is going to be for the spine. So we're going to select the spine bones. There are 3 of them. And if I select spine, I'll see the bone here highlighted in green. And attached to spine is spine 1, which is the next bone up, and spine 2 is the next bone up, and we see that we have clavicle bones attached to it. We want to take spine through spine 2, all 3 of these bones, and to select them, just click on the first one, hold Shift, click on the third one, and we have spine through spine 2 selected. We can right-click and select New Retarget Chain from selected bones, and we now have a new chain starting at spine, ending at spine 2. Now, we'd like to call this spine. These names aren't particularly important, but once we make an IK rig for Echo, if we name the chains the same as we named them here in Mixamo, then that'll make it easier to map the 2 IK rigs together. So I'm going to call this one spine and click OK, and we now have a spine chain. Now, after the spine bones, we have neck and head. Those are these bones up here. We're going to select neck and head together, right-click and make a new chain from this, and call this one head, and click OK. And now we have a head chain. So as you can see, I'm selecting the main chains of bones on the skeleton and creating a chain out of them, and these correspond to key points on the skeleton. We also want our left shoulder and right shoulder, and just like the root chain, these are going to be chains with a single bone. So we have a left shoulder bone. We're going to right-click, New Retarget Chain, and we're going to call this one left clavicle, and click OK. And we'll do the same thing for the right shoulder. So we'll find the right shoulder, make a new chain from this, and call this one right clavicle. So now we have those 2 chains. Next, we need our arms, so I'm going to scroll up and select left arm through left hand. So these 3 bones. And I'll right-click, New Retarget Chain from selected bones, and this one can be called left arm, so we'll click OK. And we'll do the same thing for the right arm. So we'll select right arm through right hand, new chain, we'll call it right arm, and click OK. Now, we also have bones for all the fingers. And yes, we're going to create chains for each finger. So that means we have to do this process 10 times, but it's worth it because then we'll have those fingers clutching around the sword in any animations that animate those fingers. So we'll start just after the left hand, where we have left hand thumb 1 through 4. We're going to select all 4 of these, right-click, and make a new retarget chain. And the naming convention I'd like to use is left thumb, and click OK. So now that we have the left thumb chain, we can move down to the next finger, which is left hand index. So we'll select all 4 bones for the left hand index, make a chain, and I'm going to call this one left index, and click OK. So we'll go for the middle finger next, make a new chain, and call this left middle. Click OK. And next we have the ring. I'm going to make a new chain, call this left ring. Click OK. And finally we have the pinky. We'll make a new chain and call this one left pinky. And click OK. So we have chains for all the fingers on the left hand. We need to repeat the process for the right hand. Be careful because they're not in the same order. It starts with the pinky, but we're going to use the same naming conventions. For the pinky, we'll call this right pinky. For the ring finger, we'll call this right ring, and so on. So I'm going to time-lapse the rest of these fingers, and you can follow along. Okay, so I've just finished all the chains for the right hand fingers. Now the only thing left are the legs. So if we scroll all the way down, we have more bones here. And I'm going to select left up leg, that's the thigh, all the way down to left toe end. That's the end of the foot. And with all of these selected, I'm going to right-click, make a chain, and call this one left leg. And click OK, and do the same for the right leg. Selecting all those bones, we'll make a chain and call this one right leg, and click OK. And now we have all the chains for our IK rig on the Mixamo skeleton. So now that we have an IK rig for Mixamo, the next step is to make one for Echo. So even though this is a lot of work, it's worth it because once we do this once, we can get any animations from the Mixamo skeleton over to Echo and use them. So all this work will pay off, especially when we need to go back and get more Mixamo animations. So let's go ahead and save this IK rig and close out of it. And I'm going to close out of these other asset editors that I have open. And it's now time to make Echo's IK rig. So we can go to Blueprints, go to Characters, and we already have a Rigs folder because we created a control rig. So here in the Rigs folder, we can make our IK rig. So let's right-click, Animation, IK rig, and select, this time, Echo, and we're going to call this IK_Echo. And we need to make the IK rig for Echo now, but this is going to be slightly different because Echo's skeleton is different. For one, there are lots of bones here that we don't need in our IK rig. We only need the chains that correspond to those chains that we made in our Mixamo IK rig. Now notice something else. Our Mixamo skeleton didn't have a root bone. Echo's skeleton does. If we select the root bone, we see that it's this bone starting between the legs going all the way up to the pelvis. And the pelvis bone is actually that bone that corresponds to the hips bone on the Mixamo skeleton. So things are a little bit different for the Echo IK rig. Now, just like our Mixamo IK rig, we had a retarget root. We need a retarget root here as well. And it's not going to be the root bone, but the pelvis, as that's the same retarget root we used in the XBot IK rig. So we're going to right-click on the pelvis bone and use Set Retarget Root. And now our retarget root is the pelvis. Now, just like we did in the Mixamo IK rig, we're going to have a chain with a single bone called root. Only this time we're actually going to use the root bone and not the pelvis. So that's a subtle nuance to take note of. We are making the pelvis the retarget root, but our root chain is going to be our root bone. So we're going to right-click on the root bone, new retarget chain from selected bones, and we're going to call this root, but with a capital R. And that's because I'd like these chains to have the same exact name as the corresponding chains in the Mixamo IK rig for XBot. So we'll add that single root chain with one bone called root, and then we can move on to the spine. Now notice that the spine on Echo has 5 bones in it. There are a lot more bones in the spine, so our spine chain is going to be all 5 of these bones. So we'll select them, new retarget chain from selected bones, and we're going to call this spine with a capital S, just like the chain for the IK rig for XBot. So we're going to click OK, and we have our spine chain. Next, we want the neck and head, which in the Mixamo skeleton came right after the spine, but in Echo, it's actually a bit further down. So we need to scroll down until we find the neck and head bones. And Mixamo had a single bone for the neck, but Echo has 2 bones for the neck. We're going to select both of those along with the head bone and make a new chain and call this one head, as that's the name of the chain in the other IK rig. So now that we have the head, we can do the left and right clavicles. In Mixamo, the left clavicle was actually called left shoulder, but we called the chain left clavicle. The corresponding bone on Echo is called clavicle L. We're going to right-click and make a new chain from this single bone and call this left clavicle. And click OK, and we'll scroll down and find the right clavicle. It's called clavicle R. We'll make a new chain from this single bone called right clavicle. And click OK. Next, we need our arms, so we'll go back up to the left arm. And the left arm starts at upper arm L and ends at hand L. So we're going to take those 3 bones, right-click, make a new chain, and we'll name it the same thing as the chain in the other IK rig, left arm, and click OK. Now for the right arm, we'll get our upper arm R through hand R, make a chain, and call this right arm. And there are the arms. Now after the arms, we're going to need to do the fingers. So this is something that also differs a bit from the Mixamo version because Echo has these metacarpal bones. And we can't use these metacarpal bones Otherwise, we'll get some problems when retargeting animations. So what we want to do is only select the finger bones. They're called index O1L, O2L, and O3L, and so on. The Mixamo skeleton had 4 bones for the finger. So avoiding the metacarpal bone, we're going to select index 1 through index 3, make a new chain, and call this left index to be consistent with the chain on the Mixamo IK rig, and click OK. So avoiding the metacarpal bones, we're going to repeat this process for all 10 fingers. So I'll go ahead and time-lapse that process. Now, just pointing out, I don't have a metacarpal bone for the thumb, so I don't need to worry about avoiding it here. Okay, I've finished with the fingers. I now need the legs. So scrolling all the way down, I'm going to select my right thigh, which is thigh R, all the way down to ball R. Now before I make this chain, notice we have these twist bones. I'm going to show you something funny that happens when we select the thigh through the ball bone, right-click, make a new chain. We'll see that it's going to try to make this chain starting at thigh R and ending at that twist bone, calf twist O2. Now this is the right thigh, so I can call this right leg. And if I click OK, it's going to ask me to make a new chain starting at calf twist O1. So the twist bones kind of break the chain. But I can click OK, and it'll ask me for another chain called thigh R, going from thigh R to ball R. I can click OK again, and now I see that I have 3 new chains. Now the one I called right leg starts at thigh R and ends at calf twist O2R. I want this to go all the way to ball R, so I can click the drop down and change that. And these other 2 chains I don't need, so I can hit the trash can icon for those and remove them. And now I have my right leg, which goes from thigh R to ball R, just as I wanted. I'll do the same thing for thigh L, but I don't want to have to create 3 chains just because of those twist bones. So I'm just going to right-click thigh L, make a new retarget chain, and call it left leg, and click OK, and simply take my left leg chain and change the end bone to ball L. And now this chain goes from thigh L to ball L. And that's the last bone in the IK rig. All right, so we now have an IK rig for Echo. This is great. We can save this and close it. And the next step is to map our animations over from Mixamo to Echo using these IK rigs. And to do that, we make something called an IK retargeter. And we'll cover that process in the next video. Great job. I'll see you soon.